highlight games that you're going to want
Yeah.
to really watch.
Put it this way: compared to your last pick, this this is one that I could see happening.
Yeah, this one I gave a lot more thought to than the last one.
Honestly, I think it comes down to whether Arizona is able to run the ball and control the clock. Because
Absolutely.
Andre Ellington is his numbers don't really show it, but if they can run the ball and control the clock and control possession and keep that Eagles offense off the field, then I think it just
I see a big game on McCoy this week. I think he's due for a monster game. They're going to be on turf in a dome. I just think that he's due, and I see him having a really big game this week.
Do you think this is the team to do it against?
Once again,
they are.
I'm not saying it is or it isn't. It's just he's like I said, they're rested, and I just think he's due, and he's done it against better defenses in his career.
The NFL's leading rushing defense, 72.5 yards a game. They're averaging.
Yep.
Giving up.
I still think he's going to have a big game. Not necessarily all rushing either. Okay. He is one of those running backs that is just as dangerous catching the ball.
Well, I hope your gut serves you better than my gut served me last week with my 49ers pick. Just saying.
Yeah.
So, the other game...
You were drunk when you made that pick.
No,
I think you were drunk.
I really wasn't. If you go back and you watch that game, there was very pivotal points early on where San Francisco had to make a play to keep up, and they just didn't. And Peyton Manning just took every advantage. And Peyton Manning doesn't miss. You know what I mean? You can't. You have to. That game last night was one where if San Francisco was going to make me look like a genius, they had to do everything right, and they just didn't. Oh, my God, did they not? Okay, so the other game that we disagree on is the Green Bay Packers traveling to the New Orleans Saints. You guys are picking the Packers. I am picking the Saints, and I will tell you why. The Saints are a different team at home, and I know that they have not played well this year, but I don't think that this is a game where they are going to lay down. I think this is the game they find themselves at home, and while it'll be a high-scoring game, it'll probably be within 5-6 points of each other. I think this is the game where the Saints say, hey, you know what, we haven't gone away completely yet. And I think the Saints can win this game at home.
Yeah, I mean, the Saints are 2-0 at home, but they've beaten Minnesota and a Tampa Bay team that they had to take to overtime.
Yep.
And Green Bay's offense is clicking on all cylinders. And they are, I mean, look at Aaron Rodgers. 18 touchdowns, 1 interception. Eddie Lacy still not having that breakout season I thought he would, but Stark showed some signs during this last game. They both showed signs. And their defense, like we said earlier, they are playing better than what they are. I don't know. I just think their offense is too much to handle for the Saints, whose defense is not showing up yet.
No, the Saints have not shown anything on paper to justify that pick. It's just a gut check for Sean Payton and his team. And I think Payton he was reportedly irritated in his press conference. I think that attitude trickles down into your team. The Packers, even though the Saints are built on passing, the Packers have the second worst rushing defense in the league. And between Kyrie Robinson and Pierre Thomas, I think that the Saints can begin to take advantage of that and take some of the heat off Drew Brees, because it's pretty clear, at least this season, that Brees is not the guy that can carry that team anymore. They have to adjust. I think they will, and like I said, they're at home. I think they can win this game.
The only reason why I like the Packers in this one is because they're the hot team. They're the team whose offense is clicking. They actually showed some semblance of a rushing offense the last couple of weeks, and their defense is just playing really good ball. And if I had to pick one of those two teams to just go with, it would be the Packers. Now, the Saints, I found it interesting that having lost by 1 point to the Lions and actually put up a decent amount of points against probably, if not the number one defense in the league, one of the top three, they did that without Jimmy Graham. I mean, I know he was there, but I mean, he didn't do anything.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And their number one receiver was Marcus Colston, a player that has sort of been shunned in this shift towards Jimmy Graham. Guy puts up 111 yards receiving. And they've got the talent. They're just not using it right, in my opinion. I mean, you cannot go to the same player all the time unless he's Des Bryant. I don't see Des Bryant and Jimmy Graham as the same player. I think Des Bryant, if I had to pick one of those two to be on my football team, it would be Des Bryant. Brees needs to stop favoring one and sort of just say, look, I've got Marcus Colston. He's a 100-yard receiver. Go use him. I've got Brandon Cooks. He's a 100-yard receiver. Go use him.
Well, and I also think that their pass-happy mentality that's worked in the past has to change as well.
Sure. I don't disagree. They've always talked about having a running game, and, hey, they're having a running game with 3 different running backs. How about using one?
Right.
And then having a second one as sort of a change of pace back. Get one to get you 100 yards rushing, another one to get you about 60 all-purpose yards. Both of them score for you.
Yeah.
Control the clock. Don't put it all on Drew Brees.
No, I totally hear you.
Yeah. And until that happens, until that shift, and, right now I'm sure the Saints, all the pressure is on, what's his name, defensive coordinator.
For the Saints?
Oh, Rob Ryan.
Rob Ryan.
Yeah, Rob Ryan. I'm sure there's tons of pressure on him because, at the end of the day, they're giving up the points to lose the games. But I'm having a hard time putting it all on him. He's a good coordinator. He's got a lot of talented guys on his defense, and it doesn't seem to me it's his scheme that's losing it. It's the one-on-one matchups.
Mm-hmm. When I look at the Saints, I see a glaring weakness at the linebacker spot. I don't see a lot of strength. I see some names: Curtis Lofton, Paris Harrelson came over from San Francisco, David Hawthorne from the Seahawks. There's a lot of middle of the road names. Nobody that's really going to blow your hair back. They're thin at the cornerback spot. The safety Kenny Vaccaro was a nice draft pick, but what's he really going to do for you? I don't think that he really has a whole lot of talent to work with on that side. And anything that he gets out of them is a bonus. I guess
fair enough. I mean, and it's still, that's the point I'm making, is I don't think it's the scheme.
Yeah,
it's the players.
Yeah, I would agree with you there.
If they're not performing well, because after the Cowboys, I think no one has an excuse anymore to watch a unit like theirs where all of us believe they would just implode, and they're playing some of the best defense among all football teams right now.
Right.
I mean, so in that sense, I don't think it's the scheme. I think it's the players. They're not making the plays.
Yep, I agree with you there. So that's week 8. Our picks there. What game are you guys most looking forward to this week?
Oof.
I'm looking down the roster right now. I and the ones that tip my interest are San Diego, Denver on Thursday night.
Yes.
And I want to say Indy, Pitt. I mean, I know Pittsburgh is up and down, but they're Indianapolis traveling to Pittsburgh. I want to see the Colts play in a hostile environment and see how they respond.
Yeah, I mean, I guess for me, I agree with you on pretty much everyone that you had said. For being a fan of our team, I'm very curious on what's going to happen in the Bears-Patriots game. Are the Patriots are they going to be able to continue their winning ways? Is Chicago going to figure things out, or are they going to melt down more? And then also, the Seahawks-Panthers, because, the Seahawks have been struggling and the Panthers have been struggling. Which team is going to break out of it? I mean, all signs show the Seahawks being that team that's gonna figure out what they were doing wrong and fix it. But I mean, I can't make that definitive. I mean, one of these two teams, which both of them were, one won the Super Bowl, one made it far in the playoffs last year. One of them is going to be 3-4, which I never expected that out of either one of these two teams.
Keith and Steve, games that interest me most are the Chargers versus the Broncos,
Yeah.
and I actually had considered the Chargers as to beat the Broncos in that game. But right now, I think the Broncos are too hot of a team, or hot enough to take on a team like the Chargers, that it's going to be a high-scoring game. But it's a game that I see the Broncos winning because it's at home. And if this were in San Diego, I would probably take the Chargers in that game. Another game that I'm looking forward to would be the Ravens-Bengals, because the Bengals need to, sooner or later, they got to play a good football game. I'm picking the Ravens. I'm picking the Ravens in this one because I think they are still the better team. But, do the Bengals at home come out and play a good game? That's, I think, the key. And there's one more. Oh, and the Eagles-Cardinals. That was a game I thought that was very difficult to try and figure out who. And I think it's a big statement game for both teams.
Jumping back to the Chargers-Denver game, the one thing going for them is that they are the third best passing defense in the league right now as far as yardage, but it's still Peyton Manning, and it's in Denver. It's a very tough place to win. So, yeah, that's going to be a fun game. I really think so.
What about Arizona, though? I mean, if you think about it, there's a decent chance. Not. I don't think it's a good chance, but it's a decent chance that Seattle could potentially lose this game this week
to the Panthers. You think?
I'm not. Look, the way they've been playing the last couple weeks.
Steve,
there's a shot.
I understand what you're saying, but that the Panthers' defense right now is one of the worst defenses in the league.
Oh, absolutely.
And
absolutely.
Russell Wilson is on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, give the Rams defense and special teams all the credit in the world last week for the amazing plays that they were able to pull off. But Russell Wilson kept that team in that game.
Were you guys as shocked by the Percy Harvin trade as I was?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was.
I
thought, this is crazy.
Because
you know what shocked me more was all the negative news about Percy
Harvin.
Until
I heard all the backstory.
Yeah, but
What's
it's
that?
like there was nothing up until the trade, and then once the trade happened, now all of a sudden these stories start leaking. Well,
that shows good locker room maintenance for Seattle. They kept all that stuff under wraps.
And now he's in with the Jets. What's the worst that could happen? Rex Ryan.
Oh my God.
Percy Harvin.
I know
That's
one of my
the
leagues.
worst team to set a head case to.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. First, we're going to find out what kind of a player Percy Harvin is, for sure. He himself as an individual. And secondly, this is going to be a true test for the Jets, because if they can get Percy Harvin into their offense, they will have gotten one of the best, I think one of the best football players around to be on their team and to help them win games. It could be a tide changer in that AFC East. And I know some people are saying, it's the Jets and blah, blah, blah. Percy Harvin had 3 touchdowns called back 2 weeks ago.
Right.
3. Yeah. And I don't think Russell Wilson did anything to cause those touchdowns to happen. They were all Percy Harvin.
2 words, Rex Ryan, jet sweep. Find a way to make it work.
There we go.
In
fact, one of my leagues, one of the guys dropped Percy Harvin.
Oh.
And I just was like, oh my God, I can't believe you just did that.
That's crazy.
At least wait to see what's going to happen.
That's what I think too. And you might have to wait a couple weeks to see.
Yeah.
But I think they're going to find a way to use him, whether it's in a jet sweep, whether it's actually lining him up in the backfield, because right now it's the Chris Ivory show. Chris Johnson isn't doing anything for him. Whether that's because the Jets aren't giving him the carries or he's really that bad, I think is debatable. But they need to get some production out of that backfield.
All right. And with that, we are out of time, folks. Thanks for listening. For Jim Saranteas from thefantasygreek.com, I'm Keith Grieve from 87sportsfans.com with Steve Taylor.
Catch us Wednesday
from 87sportsfans.com. The Fantasy Greek starts and sits live Wednesday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time, latenightsportsradio.com. Call in with your fantasy football lineup questions. Tune in tomorrow night for another episode of Claire versus Carlson. Have a good week, folks.
Post-game show is brought to you by